1, 2, 3. It was a one-night stand that got out of hand. Girl, I gotta tell you, this ain't what I planned. It was a one-night stand that got out of hand. Woke up in a cage without a place to stand. Love was the word, we were scared to use it first. Love was the lie that we told to hide the worst. Love was the hope that allowed us to survive. Love what we thought give and take could bring alive. Remember how we met with just a chance hello? Neither of us guessing where that night would go. One thing to another, that's the way it led. And all those doubtful feelings were just never said. Love was the word, we were scared to use it first. Love was the lie that we told to hide the worst. Love was the hope that allowed us to survive. Love what we thought give and take could bring alive. Well, an avalanche get started with a single stone, and maybe I was tired of living all alone. I didn't want to hurt you, but I guess I will. The trouble with a lie is that it won't lie still. It was a one-night stand, got out of hand. Girl, I gotta tell you, this ain't what I planned. It was a one-night stand, got out of hand. Woke up in a cage without a place to stand. It was a one-night gland, oops, it got out of hand. Girl, I gotta tell you, this ain't what I planned. It was a one-night stand, got out of hand. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Sorry for that Freudian slip.
Oh no, yeah, Freudian slip, right? You sing that way every time.
Oh, God.
You slip every time.
God, talking about blowing my cover.
Hi, welcome to A Question of Meaning with Arthur and Katie. And Arthur's been desperately wanting to, yes, panting.
Not really.
After a show about sex, so okay, we're doing it.
We apologize for not being live on the air so we could have advertised this as a live sex show. But
And that actually brings me to say thanks to the people who called us. We really appreciated it.
This is 2 weeks later. This is like the week of probably early May.
Yeah, that's
because we have some shows ahead that.
Right, we had to do so we're kind of lagging behind in the thanks department, but we do appreciate it. And just to kind of clean up some confusion, because we film these live. I mean, obviously there's no cuts or anything, so some people have thought that we're actually broadcasting live, and that's not true. We're broadcasting. We're filming in a remote
undisclosed
studio.
location.
But maybe we'll go live, and some of the phone calls that we've gotten have made it like it would be a lot of fun to be live. It'd be fun to interact with people on the air. And actually, that's what we're really looking for with the phone calls. It's not just to say you're watching, but we'd love to hear your feedback on, say, topics that you'd like to hear us talk about. We were joking about having a wheel of meaning.
Wheel o' meaning.
And that, we could, people could call or send us an email with a topic, and we'd put them in the slots of the wheel. And then when we start, we just spin the wheel, and whatever it lands on, we do that topic. So it would be just completely spontaneous, which would be fun.
Obviously, if you pick a subject, a topic like thermodynamics that I know nothing about. Katie probably does. She has a degree in molecular biology and biochemistry from Northwestern, but
I wouldn't have much to say about it.
Yeah, so it's got to be within the realm of the possible. If you want us to wrap it.
Possible.
Because our show is about a question of meaning. What does stuff mean? Who are we? What are we? Where are we? Why are we? And the fact that we don't know the answer to any of those questions, and what does that mean, and how does that translate in life and in the world?
So maybe what all this means is we're avoiding the topic of sex, which is what we said was our topic. And
terrifying subject.
we started with that song "One Night Stand," which I requested because I love that. It's such a funny joke. It was written in a kind of a one-liner period of our relationship, and but I think that seriously, that's the sort. A lot of relationships come out of a one-night stand, and there's a strong sexual attraction to another person, and so you never stop to question, well, is this really love? Or where's the difference between the sex and the love? And 6 months later or 5 years later, you wake up one day and you realize, oh, maybe there really wasn't ever any love there. It was just that strong sexual attraction kind of fooled me again.
Or there could have been love there, but what happened to it? Like the song, they used to do the song "Love Hurts," and love scars, love wounds, love mars, takes a lot of pain. Love is like a cloud, holds a lot of rain. I mean, it's whoever wrote that got really chewed up. And I like to introduce it by saying it isn't love that hurts. It's what we do to love, what we do to the experience. So...
well, I think that just because there's strong sexual attraction doesn't mean that it's the same thing as love. And so sometimes they match up, but not always. And I think that's the problem is that we...
I want to say even if love is there.
Oh, okay.
So we define love as the experience of unconditional acceptance of what is. So, hey, nice butt, love your buns, It's like on a very barnyard level or a rudimentary level of acceptance. You're accepting someone physically.
Right.
It's breeding is all definitely a big part of that reproductive drive, which is getting toward the sex subject that we're avoiding, because that is so much a part of what romantic love is. It's just wanting to reproduce with your optimum biological mate. I mean, we're conditioned, we're genetically encoded to act that way, to go for firm buns and symmetry of feature and.
That we watched a movie called The Invention of Lying that was about somebody living in a world in which everyone spoke the truth. And that was, in that world, the way they depicted it, all romantic attachment was about finding the best genetic match so that you would produce the most genetically pleasing offspring.
Like it.
It was pretty brutal look at life.
Or maybe it's brutal because of our ridiculous notions about what sex really is.
Well, yeah.
I looked up just for the hell of it, because I love dictionary definitions, or I like not so much dictionary definitions, but definitions that make sense, because otherwise, if we're not on the same page, we don't agree to the basic definitions, what are we talking about? We really can't have a conversation. So I looked up sex, and it's there are three here, and the third one is the operative for this show, I think. As a noun, it's either of the two major forms of individuals that occur in many species, and that are distinguished respectively as male or female. Male, female. Okay. 2, the sum of the structural, functional, and behavioral characteristics of living things that are involved in reproduction by two interacting parents and that distinguish males and females. And 3, sexually motivated phenomena or behavior. And I would say I just grabbed this one line from another one. The sexual urge or instinct as it manifests itself in behavior.
Okay, I'm frowning because those are circular definitions. They're using the word to define itself. So you're defining sex as the sex. I'm not saying you, but this dictionary is defining sex as sexually motivated behavior. Well, that's not defining a word, because you can't use the word to define itself. So
there's the dictionary for you, as we've often been disappointed. I haven't come up with one yet.
All the words that are in common usage to define the word are not. They can't print in a dictionary, and we can't use on the air. So there is no definition of sex. That's
great. Well, I've written about 70 songs, and we try to pick songs for our shows that are somewhat relevant to what we're talking about, the subject du jour. And I noticed that I hadn't written any songs about sex. There's no song specifically about sex. a one-night hand that got out of a hand.
A one-night hand that got out of
Oh, whoops. Now there's a Freudian slip. Oh yeah, that's a subject unto itself. It makes me think. I was actually thinking about this show that Thomas Wolfe, Look Homeward Angel, when he talks about this incredible inspired teacher that he had. This woman was just so wonderful and gave him so much in his schooling, and yet she was completely ignorant of boys and their attitude towards sex, their fumbling discoveries, and their essentially the bottom line is Wolf said something like, little did she know that almost every boy, it might have been every boy on some level, especially on the sexual level, considers himself a monster.
Yeah, right. Phew. But you know...
Any men out there relate to that, you know? I mean, how many women have I known in my life who told me their first period started and they didn't know what was happening? Well, their mom didn't prepare them. I mean, you had an RN for a mom.
Yeah, she prepared me, but it was still not enough.
Maybe it's never enough, considering her screwed up attitudes towards sex. So what is sex?
I think that personally, that the reason there's all those things, the feeling the monster, and if you look at, say, the social conservatives, all of their basic hot button issues have to do with sex in one way or another. And I think that
poor little fetuses.
The sexual force is so strong, and it's such
man on dog
a force of that. In order to have, through most of human history, in order to have a functioning society that has some control, the sexual impulse had to be controlled. I think that was what happened. I think personally, I talk about the happy days when we were all pagans, and we were having a lot of fun, before Christianity, before civilization came along. And I think one of the ways was in sexual. I think we were much freer sexually. And in order to have cities where we have huge numbers of people in one place, you had to put a lid on that because it was too much potential for conflict. As long as we were in small groups where everyone knew each other, you didn't have so much worries about people wanting to own other people. But in order to make society function, up until now, there had to be these limits, and I think that's one of the reasons our time is so interesting is we're maybe on the edge of being able to move past those arbitrary constraints, arbitrary rules that we've put in place to make it work. And so people are starting to really exercise freedom. And it looks like, to a social conservative, it looks like everything's falling apart. But it's just because we're actually starting to really be free, going back into a way of and sexual freedom, I think, is a big part of being free. So.
However, I would
you always do that.
I would play devil's advocate with that.
Please.
Because I think that, what our definition of insanity is the state in which we confuse our subjective opinion with objective fact, the way we relate to the universe. And I bet if we really looked at sex under its true function, which is reproduction, it's really not about swinging from the chandeliers, or orgy-porgy.
Do you eat just to nourish your body?
Yes. If you did that, no, obviously I don't. I had ice cream last night, Now there's an example of my subjective opinion was, it's okay that you're obese. You can buy that, not even a half gallon anymore. I'm really on it with Breyers. You can buy that, tub of Breyers ice cream and bring it home. It's okay. That is in direct conflict with the objective fact that I'm obese and I shouldn't get anywhere near that. I'm taking Glucophage to keep my blood sugar normalized. That's insanity. That's crazy thinking. Look at Alcoholics Anonymous. People have been sober for 20 years, and all of a sudden they just get this idea one day at a restaurant that it's
okay to have a glass of beer.
So you arguing that in the future we're only going to have sex to procreate. Is that what you're saying?
I'm thinking in the future we may not have sex at all because procreation will no longer be an issue because we'll achieve physical immortality.
Well,
However,
in the future we're going to
let me not jump that far ahead.
Yeah, really.
Let me not
please.
jump that far ahead. But I will say that there's a great Terry Southern short story in his collection, Red Dirt, Marijuana, and Other Tastes. Highly recommended. It's called. It was called Terry Southern Visits the Dixie Baton Twirling Institute at Ole Miss. And while he is there, he gives a brief history of the baton. And it was originally, the baton was used in military marching bands, and it was all male, and the baton was worked up and down in a very straightforward, keeping the beat. You know?
That's all it was about, was keeping the beat. Right.
But when the girls got a hold of it, the idea of twirling it and flinging it high in the air, he said, was a delightfully girlish notion. So if I can lug this by the ears back to the point, I think if we strictly saw that sex would be at a moment of complete optimum time for fertility, just like the animal that we evolved from, the animal state. It would be optimized for impregnation and reproduction. It would be an incredible experience and would probably, do it every 10 months or something, or depending on your intention, whatever. But the idea of like being obsessive, compulsive about it, which I can relate to, I don't know if any of the viewers can, where it basically kind of is a gigantic, portion of your everyday life, it was never meant to be that way. That's the baggage, the subjective ego baggage, the value judgments and opinions that we bring to a reproductive act. Read the last 120 Days of Sodom by the Marquis de Sade if you'd like a real glimpse at just how far out it can get. What happens when what was that great TV Funhouse episode about, bowel movements and just refrain from bowel movements until you're old enough to really, until you're 21, I think, was until you're married. And then
then you can really appreciate them.
Yeah.
Well, so that, in other
we're
words,
screwed
you're
up
saying,
about sex. We say we're insane about everything, man, with sex. We are screwed up, almost redshifted out of the...
Because the rules are so strict about it. Like I said, the controls that are so clamped down, so tight. And I think what you're saying is that it's the tightness of the controls and on such a volatile, strong force creates extreme twisting.
What did Gamble Rogers say? Remember, folks, sex ain't dirty unless you do it right.
So the fact that our culture sees it as dirty pushes it into the dirty realm.
Yeah.
And the dirtier it gets, the more... Well, like you said, we subscribe to Harper's Magazine, this nice, sedate, intellectual, liberal magazine. And if you look, and there's a very few number of classifieds in the back. And there's an ad for spanking videos that has been going on for years.
The only one like it is like...
and obviously, they sell DVDs to this market, so... yeah.
Please, sir, may I have another?
Well, maybe if you're an academic, it's sort of like you're the teacher's student turns you on or something. I don't know.
Maybe we should do a song here. Get away from this subject.
Well, somebody did say that. Like, why do you have guitars? You don't play. You talk so much. You hardly ever see you.
Yeah, someone called and said, I've been watching your show for 5 minutes. Why are you holding guitars? And then he calls back and he says, I've been watching. It's 25 minutes now. Why are you holding guitars?
Because we run our mouths so much.
We do.
Well, we were talking about, Arthur said, let's do this show about sex. And so, we were looking through the songs that I picked out, One Night Stand. I mean, that one was obvious. But then we're like, well, as he said, where are the other songs about it? And so my joke was, well, there is one called Opening.
Is that smutty or what?
Which really has more to do about... It really doesn't have anything to do with sex.
Maybe we should do Swimming with the Sharks. That's got at least one verse on the subject. That's true. Why don't we do it?
Okay.
Let's do
we've
that.
done it on some other show, but chances are people haven't seen it.
Ready?
As ready as I'll ever be.
There's something to be said for swimming with the sharks and betting that the bites are no worse than the barks. There's something to be said for swimming with the sharks and betting that the bites are no worse than the barks. They told me sex was dirty except unto a wife. They told me I was jerking off the best years of my life. But somehow I saw different, and guilt was worth the price. To all alone or with a friend escape to paradise. There's something to be said for swimming with the sharks and betting that the bites are no worse than the barks. There's something to be said for swimming with the sharks and betting that the bites are no worse than the barks. They told me that my duty was kill or else be killed, defend their freaking lifestyle, and me the one who's billed. But somehow I saw different. I'd die to keep you free. Well, better dead than red yourself. You're dead for all I see. There's something to be said for swimming with the sharks and betting that the bites are no worse than the barks. There's something to be said for swimming with the sharks and betting that the bites are no worse than the barks. They told me about Jesus and how he turned his cheek and how good Christians must forgive and practice what they speak. But somehow I saw different, saw contradictions peak. So kindly pray downwind because I just can't take the reek. There's something to be said for swimming with the sharks and betting that the bites are no worse than the barks. There's something to be said for swimming with the sharks and betting that the bites are no worse than the barks. They told me drugs would kill me and turn my mind to mush and kill precious ambition, that pursuit of royal flush. But somehow I saw different, and maybe I will die. But visions even stolen beat a safe but sleeping sty. There's something to be said for swimming with the sharks and betting that the bites are no worse than the barks. There's something to be said for swimming with the sharks and betting that the bites are no worse than the barks. There's something to be said for swimming with the sharks and betting that the bites are no worse than the barks. There's something to be said for swimming with the sharks and betting that the bites are no worse than the barks.
Well,
See,
yeah.
I discovered sex all by myself. I had no sex education whatsoever. I educated myself. I got a lot through movies, imitating what I saw in movies. And I basically fumbled around until at the age of 11, I discovered the punchline, as it were. And it was like, sweet mystery of life, at last I found you. And it became just the never-ending story of pursuit and adventure and obsession. And one of the incredibly screwed up, major screwer-upper of moi, through life. I could have built the pyramids if it weren't for being kind of hypersexual for a long time. And I think it's like that. I think it's like, making, something dirty about bowel movements or something. It's like, and we live in a world, it's one of my favorite examples, because our new book, We Are All Innocent, is very much about insanity. And one of my favorite examples of just how screwed up we really are is that we wallow in an ocean of violence in our mainstream entertainment. I saw on channel surfing, even though I admit I do watch Crime Scene Investigator Miami because of the eye candy. We're video producers. And it is so, such a knockout picture. So many beautiful shots of Miami and Biscayne Bay. And anyway, they had a whole episode about a guy who was pushed into a wood chipper. And the glamorous CSI people, actually, they weren't actually putting the pieces together. But, beautiful, loving close-up shots of meaty bits stuck to the saw blades of the thing. And then they had assistants taking all the little bits and pieces and arranging the person in this crude form on a big morgue table. And that's mainstream entertainment, folks. But you know what you'll never see? You go see Saw, a whole series of the most. If I really had to label something obscene, that's what I'd label obscene. Some trash like that. I can't even imagine the kind of people that would go see that movie. But you know, there are a lot of you out there. You know, God, how could you possibly find something like that entertaining? I mean, for us, we saw, when I was a kid, we went to see Night of the Living Dead, which was grisly enough. You know, but the new stuff, it's just like, it's just a whole new, maybe it's just a, variation of just wallowing in horror. And maybe even if it was equal time, maybe if you could see sex, the act that makes people feel really good, really loving each other and taking care of each other, beautiful thing. If that were given equal time, but you know what happens when people start to make it? The camera tastefully fades to black, so you won't see the horror. But you can simulate, you can go and eat your popcorn and slurp your Slurpee and get off on watching every variation of violence lovingly depicted. You might as well hire people to put snuff films together for your entertainment pleasure. If that's not crazy, I'm Donald Duck. There's something deeply wrong with a culture that worships violence and makes sex a filthy act that has to be concealed or relegated to a underground porn industry. End of editorial. How's that? How am I doing?
Well,
that'll screw you up. That screwed me up, your morality, your Christian bullshit. That's what I grew up in. That's where a lot of it comes from. Putrid, Puritan, screwed up, sexually impacted.
Well, and I think because you're making 2 points there. One is that just the basic, obvious point that, what's wrong with a culture in which violence is worshipped, but any kind of physical affection is pretty much, kissing, even kissing is, you don't see much of that. It's like the whole, the scene, the sex scene, which is maybe a kiss. And that's, you kind of know they're going to have sex and that's it. There's another aspect to it, which is that you're arguing, and we're arguing, that it's the repression of the sex causes the extreme perversions, if you want to use that word, of sexual behavior that we see. And that people say, pornography creates the perversions. Well, we're arguing the opposite, that it's the repression that's causing the perversions and the problems. And, it causes incredible amounts of shame. How many of us, as teenagers, felt enormous shame for the completely natural feelings that were going on and had no one to talk to about it except our peers, because who were going through it were just as confused as we were, because, you're going to tell your parents that you have all these tingly feelings? I don't think so. How would they know? They never, they don't know anything about sex.
It never happened to them, I'm sure.
Right.
It's all smooth plastic down there.
And so, that our cultural repression of sex is causing us enormous problems in the sexual realm. And I do believe that very strongly. And
it makes serial killers.
Yeah.
Makes rapists, makes pedophiles, because people don't know what to do with that energy. There's shame. There's so much shame around it. And even kids today, I guarantee you, they got access to anything you want on the internet, but I bet you don't tell your parents you're looking at it. And I bet you can see it. There's a whole cachet of dirtiness and seediness around it. There's something wrong with it. It's really screwed up. I'd like to use another word, but I can't. It's before 11 o'clock.
Well, yeah, I think another aspect of our culture that's causes us problems is the monogamy, this worship of monogamy. And when our philosophy of insanity, we talk about subjective beliefs and how we have each one of us is locked in our own subjective world built of these beliefs. And some of those beliefs are of our own individual creation, but there are cultural subjective beliefs that we share with everyone in our culture that helps, create a world in which we all operate. And so we think that that's normal. But when you go to another country and you're in another culture, you bump up against that. That's when you see that there are shared sets of cultural beliefs. But in our culture and in a lot of cultures around the world, most cultures really, monogamy is a foundational cornerstone of that, and I think that causes enormous problems, and you see it in people, the serial monogamy, because people can't. They're not satisfied with the one person. I think in terms of child care, women have to totally, so many women, it's really hard when you're a woman because you maybe love sex as much as a man, but you've got some major consequences that you have to be aware of from the very start, that if you indulge, you are going to be saddled with children that you're going to have to take care of and not depend on a man to help you do it. So you have to restrain your interests, let's say it that way.
That's right.
And
True.
so, and
long before real birth control came into play. And even still, I know, but it was really, can you imagine back in the 50s?
Yeah, that's right.
No wonder women are conservative. Men are,
That's right.
Why not?
But it's part of our monogamous thing,
you get pregnant, man, see how you feel.
It's all built on this nuclear family, and, your kids are your problem. And, it's there's so much this monogamy is the unquestioned correct form of relationship that all the structures of our society are based around that.
Oh, it leads perfectly into what you said earlier about right from the cave, the way we organized and maintained order in the group was ownership of women.
Right. Well, maybe not in the cave,
or
but
mating, or pre-civilization, if you will.
Right.
And with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde comes to mind. Frederick March, highly recommended, 1930-something.
Right.
Because that's what happened. Mr. Hyde was the wild man who was, promiscuity was heavily represented in that film when he indulged. I mean, it was just a normal way of life, was hyper-indulgence.
But
no inhibitions.
But you could even say, I could say that the whole cultural bias towards monogamy was all over that film because his wildness was directed at one woman. A true wild man wouldn't have been interested in just the one woman. So,
Well, he had to be conservative, give him a break, because he was almost an ape. He was very much an apoid, and he had to. And he did pick a delectable wench, I must say, if he had to be monogamous. He found initially a willing partner, until she realized, if I come back and I find one thing wrong, just one little thing, I'll show you the true meaning of horror. Not a happy relationship. So where are we going with this?
I don't know. This was your idea.
Yeah, well, I think it's good. I think it's a manifestation of what is the meaning of sex. And I think objectively, sex is a reproductive act that you probably do. Well, like they said in who said it once? When you're hot, and when you're not, you're not. That's all you need to know about sex. When it's time, you do it. Mm-hmm. You experience it. You have it, and I think if you could really take off all the nonsense, which makes it wonderful, of course.
But actually, that's not really true. I mean, which I'd like to get to at a certain point. But anyway, but to finish your point, that it's about that when you strip away all the nonsense, that's really what sex is about.
We would not make the Taj Mahal out of it that we make if it were not for all the it's almost like it's child psychology. It's almost like the Adam and Eve were hanging in the garden and having a great time and walking in the presence of God, and they had everything. And all he had to do was obey one tiny, weensy little rule. You may not touch the fruit of that tree. That one tree over there, that's it. Dun, 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 the forbidden nature. Child psychology 99. Forbidden nature of anything makes it attractive.
Well, so that leads us to another song, which is Original Sin.
Oh.
Because, it's interesting. The original sin is, I guess, that the picking of the fruit. But when I think of original sin, I think of sex. But isn't the original sin really that Adam picked the fruit? Or was the original sin that Eve listened to the snake?
You're right. And what does the snake represent? Oh, never mind. But,
But they recognized they were naked.
That's right. That was the first and my grandmother used to read that story to me when I was a little kid. And when she said, and they saw they were naked, and you could feel the wickedness and nastiness and evil leaching out of that story, you know? So I got naked at every opportunity. That was the wrong kid to mess with. Yeah, this song, Original Sin, is the idea that ultimately, if there's an absolute truth, we think it's one. It's infinite oneness. And the universe is an illusion. It's an illusion of countless myriad forms. It's the only way the infinite one can experience finite form, is to forget itself and become a universe. It's from our book, The Game of God, Recovering Your True Identity. You can look us up on Amazon.
Well, if you go to our questionofmeaning.com, you will be directed to the Game of God site.
That's right, gameofgod.com.
That's right.
But so we think, you know, as far as sin is concerned, and we define sin and evil as believing in and or acting on a false belief. And a belief is false to the exact extent to which it fails to admit to its limitations. Humility is the key. So anyway, the whole universe is sin. It's all masturbation in terms of our sex show. You know, it's the only way God can experience other. Know what I mean? Where are we? I think we'd finish. 2, 3, and
I have been trying to find the original sin that's led us into the condition we're in, but it seems to remember a time when we knew, a time we were one, you were I, and I was you. I have been trying to find the original lie that's turned my heart cold as the fear in your eye, but it seems to remember a time oh so true, a time we were one, you were I, and I was you. Do you remember? It's such a long way back. Do you remember? Can we still find the tracks? Do you remember? It's covered up with tears. Do you remember? Beneath the weight of years, I have been trying to look, but it's so hard to see when what I am seeking seems never to be, but it seems to remember, and I know you can too. The time we were one, you were I, and I was you. Do you remember? It's such a long way back. Do we remember? Can we still find the track? Do you remember? It's covered up with tears. Do you remember? Beneath the weight of years, I have been trying to look, but it's so hard to see when what I am seeking seems never to be, but it seems to remember, and I know you can too. That time we were one, you were I, and I was you. Do you remember?
I don't remember, but theoretically it's true. We were all one once, and then we started sinning. You're over there, and I'm over here, and that's a sin. That's believing in and acting on a false belief.
But in terms of our philosophy, that fits in with our idea of the source of the universe. Really, is that's the original. That's the beginning. Is the idea of separation, and that's where we. Well, thanks.
Right.
So, you know, and since we don't believe in sin in the way it's ordinarily defined, but that's where it started. It didn't start with, you know, the recognition of being naked or anything like that. It's that there is the one that is the creator, the source, the
truth.
only, and then there is the many. And as
The
long
illusion.
as we think we're the many, we're not part of. We're in delusion. But you know that in song's interesting in terms of the conversation about sex, because for me, as I've gotten older, you know, maybe that's just what happens when you get older. But I think that, you know, that definition that you know, kind of joke that Arthur said that, you know, sex ain't dirty unless you do it right. That you know, it's funny, but as I've gotten older, that has had less and less meaning for me, because what I've started realizing is that sex isn't, you know, when you do it right, it's not dirty at all. And that what it's about is creating a sense of profound unity with another person. And that in order to achieve that, and I think this is what Tantric is about, but in order to achieve that unity, you're actually having to leave behind all those subjective beliefs about what sex means, and, you know, what it takes to get hot, and anything that's going on in your mind. You have to actually get almost into a meditative state. And
it becomes like an experience and not a dialogue, not an internal value judgment, language-based commentary on what you're doing. How do you like this? You know,
that's right.
You know,
That's
yeah,
right.
you want it, don't you?
Right,
I can't
right.
say it.
Yeah, that's right. You know, it's difficult to talk without crossing some boundaries here, but I think that's, you know, I feel like I've said what I want to say about it. That you know, that it's beautiful. It's clean, as a matter of fact.
It's like your friends.
You know.
Your friends in the greatest, cleanest, most profound sense of the word. It's called making love.
Right.
Instead of the word we can't use, ing, blanking. There's blanking, and then there's making love, which is tantric, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not. It's experience as opposed to sinning. You know, you're believing and acting on a false belief. It's belief driven. You know, it's naughty. This is hot. This is really sexy. Or I'm really good. Or she's really good. Or yeah, go baby go, or whatever, you know, that all that stuff.
And you know, that just brings up, you know, you talk about how our culture, you know, we worship violence, but
Go,
then
baby, go.
when you look
Sorry.
at the advertising side of our culture, I mean, what would advertising do without sex? I mean, it would collapse. There would be nothing. You know, and mostly female oriented, of course, which is nothing new. But it's interesting that, I mean, because that just maybe is another illustration of the powerful driving force that is in human life, that, you know, we try to keep a cap on, but advertising knows how to harness, or to exploit, I guess you'd say, exploit those primal impulses. And that's why it's, you know, even as repressed a culture as we are, the reason advertising is all over advertising is because it works so well. Somebody that called asked about our relationship, what is our relationship, and maybe that, it was funny because the one that show that he called about, we weren't very happy that day.
God,
it was
it
our
was the
show
day from
about
hell
anger,
show.
and so we probably didn't look like we even wanted to know each other.
You guys married?
That's right. The truth is, we are married. We've been together in June. We'll have met. It'll be 30 years since we met in June.
Yeah, we lived together. We met in San Francisco 30 years ago. We lived together, then we got married, then we did our own divorce, had a big party, continued living together. Then we got married again, and we're still married. We told a friend of ours this once, and she said, "Oh, you must wake up in the morning and go, oh yeah." We don't wear rings, run into rings. Although we have had a ring phase.
Yes. Well, yes, yeah, I hated being married personally. That the first time we were married for a year, and I felt so confined and pinned down, and, you know, because of my basic beliefs that, you know, monogamy is, you know, a culturally imposed lie, really.
If we survive, it's doomed to obsolescence eventually.
And
primitive.
And I was much happier when we got divorced.
I threw a big party at our apartment in Nashville, at a big drug party. Katie burned her marriage license and threw it in the trash can in the
I thought
kitchen.
I'd put it out.
Started smelling smoke. Almost burned the apartment down. Just sling buckets of water on the floor. It burned right down through the trash into the floor.
Luckily, it was a slum dwelling. It didn't matter.
That's right.
No one noticed. But we did get married again later. We were actually attending a church and kind of non-denominational church. And it was really wonderful because this was a conservative congregation, and they, you know, living together outside of marriage was not allowable in these people's realities, and we were living together and unmarried.
I think what saved us is we had been married.
That's right.
In
No,
the past,
the minister told us that they recognized that we had been married, and so it was like this. You know, we were as usual in some, category of one. But after about 6 months, the minister came to us and said, "Okay, you guys, we need to have this conversation because we have allowed you're a special exception here." But, we need to talk about it. And so we did. And what we talked about was that what marriage is a commitment to deal with problems, really. I would say foundationally for me. And that's why we did get married. Was
partnership.
Remarried. Was that say, okay, when it gets bad,
and sometimes it's so bad.
Stay and
she's
work
perfect.
it out.
I'm a snarling beast from hell.
Yeah, but maybe I just as I was saying that, I was thinking maybe we'll do Time of Strife because going back to the song we started with, One Night Stand. Maybe what that song is really all about is love is not something that just happens. That's not true. Love does happen, but in terms of making it a relationship, you need to really put in time. You need to work on it. And that's been a problem for me. I just think, I have our cultural image of, we see in Hollywood movies where the princess finds the prince, or the prince finds the princess, I should say, sweeps her up on the horse, and off they ride into the sunset. No problems. If you found the right guy, you're never going to have any problems. So if you have problems in your relationship, it must be you've got the wrong guy. That's kind of the way our culture has taught us to think.
50% divorce rate? Yeah, I'd say that's kind of prevalent.
Yeah, and we don't really have a whole lot of models and I didn't see it in my parents. I never saw my parents fight until the day they got divorced, and then they still didn't fight. They just didn't talk to each other anymore.
Dad moved out.
And I never had any models for working out problems in a relationship. And so, it was interesting.
My father disappeared after one child support payment when I was 5 years old.
And I just, really got when I was kind of making those grimaces just a minute ago that, I still am not really good about working through the problems. I just act like it's all Arthur's fault, and when he gets when he gets over
Any man
it,
out there relate to this?
when he gets over it, then everything will be
Beast.
all right again. So
That's
maybe
nice.
here you have it documented that
right.
maybe I could do a little better about
None of us
dealing with
know
problems.
what love is. We don't even know who we are, much less know how to behave. We don't know how to love, lovemaking for me has been so rare, but I've had hot sex to die for. I'm 64 and fat and old now, but man, I have had a good time in the sex department. I guarantee you, I have realized almost every fantasy. Katie goes, "Oh my God, there's anything left?" I've definitely tripped the light, fantastic, and proud of it. A lot of pain, but holy cow! That's what the universe is for, is to go through all this. Every bit of it, every single bit of it. But it's also to wake up. If our theory is correct, if the universe is supreme intelligence in a state of amnesia, going through slumming, going through the adventure of life, finite life, this person is getting its money's worth. This individual, this infinite thing, nameless one. But I don't think it cares to reside in the sewer forever. It's going to wake up. It's not going to languish in the dream, which in a sense is a nightmare. Look at life, Look at sexual frustration and the whole groping, guilt-ridden, you know, ordeal that we have to go through, the discovery and the mistakes and the relationships and the catastrophes and the, groping in the dark, if you will. That's not too
Hey, I had
graphic.
some wonderful groups in the dark.
I've had my best gropes have been with the lights on, baby.
I just,
The hell with the dark.
well, I'm just saying, there, some of those real early experiences.
I know, you're right.
You know what I wanted to say? I'm kind of wanting to say it. I wanted to not think a lot about what I was going to say in this show.
Me too. Yeah.
Because, and I wanted it to just be. I didn't want to plan it, but I did think of one thing, which was about a month ago, 6 weeks ago, we read in the New York Times that this female researcher who was studying some kind of seabird, and I'm not quite sure where, Hawaii, or it seems like it was in the Pacific, had discovered that some of the pairs, mating pairs that were on eggs, turned out to both be female. And she, went back. She'd plucked feathers off every bird in this colony and DNA tested them. And it was so shocking that they went, because this was a species that had been held up as one of the examples of monogamous species for life. And actually, Laura Bush had traveled to this island and pointed to this bird species as a model of lifetime monogamy, as for humans to emulate. And so this woman was like, I got to be really careful here that I don't get I don't embarrass myself. So she went back, she plucked feathers from every pair again, went through the DNA testing. There were pairs, they were two females on a nest with eggs. And it turned out that the only explanation for this was that the males were not monogamous. But why were the females? I mean, this is still so new, they haven't really figured it out. But I just want to caution anybody out there who has the belief that biologists can point to behavior in the animal world, that here's monogamous animal behavior, and the humans are somehow, we're screwed up because we're not following those patterns. Well, a lot of that research is very interim and based on not a whole lot of observation. And this species that was thought to prove monogamy in animal species turns out to be wrong.
Not only monogamy, my dear, but a refutation of homosexuality.
Well, but they didn't
They
show
used
any
a male
sexual
just for that, for reproduction only, but they lived together. They paired. The same females paired and nested year after year after year.
But they didn't show any sexual behavior between the two females. So you have to,
Well, there is certainly evidence of that in the animal kingdom, too.
So anyway, I just wanted to just say I like that as a caution against using animals to prove or disprove the way humans should behave.
That's right.
So let's do another
I think we're
song.
going to probably grow out of it. I wanted to say this because I thought you were going to mention, because it was also an argument for, there was evidence of homosexuality in that article, unless I misread it. Because I don't know why I wanted to say this, but in terms of sex, because I wanted to talk about just men and women. I had the most amazing experience once, and this is so naive, but I'll say it anyway. I had a lesbian friend who I had known for 30-something years when this happened. We were in her house in Florida, and we're sitting at the bar, and feeling no pain. And I looked across at her, and for the first time in all these years, I don't know what I thought. I thought maybe, gays or lesbians, homosexuals. I see nothing wrong with that word. People who are homosexual are attracted to the same sex. I never understood it. I never really got what was going on. But all of a sudden, I looked across into this woman's eyes, and I realized I was talking to a man in a woman's body. It was completely a male libido. And it's since we're talking about sex, I mean, that's naive. I'll just throw that out there for what it means. But it helps me kind of maybe get a handle on how much the sexual category or classification really defines us as individuals. You're a woman, and you act, the way you move and everything is female. And, I'm a man, and I've kind of because I was raised by two women after Daddy split the scene, and I think I've adopted certain female techniques, but I'm still a big 6-foot guy, and but just your identity is so caught up in your libido and your sexual identity.
Yeah, it could be a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
But what I thought of when you were talking then was, something that I think, and you've this kind of shushed me at times, but maybe that was just because we were living in such a conservative place before we moved to Asheville. But I mean, personally, I think everyone's bisexual.
I agree.
I think that our sexual orientation, the way it's expressed, is also extremely repressed culturally, and that that's been so unthinkable to have, to be anything other than heterosexual for so much of history. And even now, it's like you've got to choose one or the other. And I think that that's another thing that causes us enormous problems, is that we are we feel unable to acknowledge, really, the feelings that are true for a person we meet, because it's like, oh my God, that means I'm lesbian. No, it doesn't.
But there's still an underlying.
You're human.
I would say there's an underlying. It's not. I mean, I think it's like I used to play 12-string guitar also, but you don't want to play 12-string guitar all the time. My primary interest was the 6-string, and I think that I've had a lot of adventures and that have involved other sexes, but I always come back to my favorite flavor. I don't know why I need to say that, but
it's very interesting. I'd like you all to notice that was important for Arthur to say that.
It was. I think we're bisexual to a degree, but like I said, I think the bottom line is reproduction. That's what it's all about. We got to go. Let's do it.
Okay, what are we doing?
Okay, time of strife? Oh, shoot. So we do it in this key?
No, D.
D.
We were lying on a hillside on a troubled afternoon, with our bodies pressed together, and the night had come in soon. When I saw your eyes were open, and they sang love's silent tune. Baby, in a time of strife, right here in the midst of life, who'd have ever thought that I would find this love for you? Baby, in a time of strife, right here in the midst of life, who'd have ever thought that I would find this love for you? We had known a time of trouble, oh, the feeling fades so fast, and the question loomed uncertain. Yeah, we wondered, could we last? Till I saw your eyes were opened, and I knew the fear had passed. Baby, in a time of strife, right here in the midst of life, who'd have ever thought that I would find this love for you? Baby, in a time of strife, right here in the midst of life, who'd have ever thought that I would find this love for you? Love doesn't care what's going on outside. It's as free as the air and as wild as a landslide, and we know not when the hour comes. Love doesn't care. You can't hold back a flood tide, and cold embers can flare from fire that we saw die, and we know not when the hour comes. Goodbye, everybody. Know it when the hour comes. Tune in again for Know the Hour Comes.
Thursdays at 7:30.
Now, baby, baby, in a time of strife, right here in the midst of life. Who'd have ever thought that I would find this love for you? Baby, in a time of strife, right here in the midst of life, who'd have